Hello and welcome. Tonight, tragedy in Lagos as 15 people are killed in an accident on Lagos-Badagry Expressway. Traffic officials say it's a head-on collision between a bus and a tipper truck, and it happened under the heavy rains. The president emerges chairman as he attends the ECOWAS Heads of State and Government session in Guinea-Bissau. Also meets Nigerian troops on foreign mission, expresses solidarity with them. More reactions pour in on President Bola Tinubu's executive orders. I'll be joined by Mr. Adewale Smart Oyeride, the Director General of the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, on the impact of these. And U.S. President faces criticism over a decision to send cluster bombs to Ukraine. We begin on a sad note with a story coming from Badagry in Lagos, where 15 people are said to have died in a tragic accident involving two vehicles under the heavy morning rain. Others are said to have sustained injuries in the accident. According to traffic and emergency officials, an 18-seater bus ran into a truck in the Agemo area along Lagos-Badagry Expressway in the early hours of today. The passengers had chartered the bus from Yaba to the Republic of Benin through the Badagry border area. The driver of the commercial bus reportedly lost control when he suddenly saw a truck ahead of him while trying to overtake another truck loaded with sand. 14 people died at the scene, and a 4-month-old baby rescued from the scene later died at the hospital. A Deputy Sector Commander, Head of Operations Federal Road Safety Corps, Lucas Oguntade, who was among the first to provide emergency services at the accident scene, attributed the carnage to reckless driving, blaming the passengers for not raising an alarm to stop the driver when it was clear there was a heavy downpour. He was in our studio this evening to give details on the road accident.
When we decide to throw caution into the wind, there's always consequences. And that is a typical example of what we witnessed this morning. It was during the rain in the morning. A passenger vehicle and a truck having a head-on collision. It was as a result of recklessness on the part of one of the drivers. Unfortunately, the incident claimed altogether now 15 lives. On the spot, 14 died, and later in the hospital, another one died. It was 9 that sustained serious injuries that were taken to the hospital. But later, one of them later gave up the ghost. The truck driver is alive, and he's the only one that is that came out unscratched. The majority of those victims, those that died and even sustained injuries, are from the commercial vehicle. The commercial vehicle has a lot of, has more people, and that is like what I said. These people are not ordinarily supposed to keep quiet. Inside the rain, we must, as much as possible, lower that speed. And if that is not done, 1, 2, 3 people should be able to shout the driver down. When you are driving under the rain, it is expected that you apply what we refer to as common sense speed limit, because of so many reasons. Number one, the visibility will be very poor, very, very poor. And the failure to do that resulted in that road traffic accident.
President Bola Tinubu has emerged as the new chairman of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, after President Muhammadu Buhari, who previously held the position in 2018. The new chairman of the sub-regional body declared that insecurity and creeping terrorism were stunting the progress and development of the region. He warned that the threat to peace in the sub-region had reached an alarming proportion with terrorism and an emerging pattern of military takeovers that now demands urgent and concerted actions from member states. Our State House correspondent, Gloria Umizoke, reports.
On his first official trip within the African continent since assumption into office, President Bola Tinubu joined his African counterparts in Guinea-Bissau for the 63rd ordinary session of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State. It is also President Bola Tinubu's first meeting of the ECOWAS Authority, which was last held in December 2022 in the State House, Abuja. A report of the 50th Ordinary Session of the Mediation and Security Council covering security challenges faced by the member countries, the financial state of the body as well as the Africa Continental Free Trade Area were also cogent matters discussed. At the opening ceremony, the president of the ECOWAS Commission, Omar Aliyu Toure, congratulated Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu and that of his Sierra Leonean counterpart on their assumption into office as president.
Excellencies, I would like to thank all of you for your attendance. This is perhaps the meeting with the highest attendance of the heads of state and government. Peaceful political transitions in our region are always reassuring to our stability and is testimony of our deepening democracy.
Speaking through an interpreter, President of Guinea-Bissau and outgone chair of the ECOWAS Authority, Umaru Embalo, lauded Nigeria for her efforts towards sustenance of peace and democracy, but illuminates persistent regional threats.
Mesdames et messieurs,
in this perspective, I would like to remind you how important and urgent it is for us to consider other ways of mobilizing financial resources from each member state with our strategic partners in order to create the necessary environment to operationalize our action plan against terrorism.
Subsequently, President Bola Tinubu emerged as the new chairman of the ECOWAS after his predecessor and immediate past president Muhammadu Buhari, who previously held the position from 2018 to 2019. According to a statement released by the special advisor to the president on special duties, communications and strategy, the new chairman of the sub-regional body, President Bola Tinubu, stated that insecurity and creeping terrorism were stunting the progress and development of the region. He says on peace and security, the threat has reached an alarming level and needs urgent actions in addressing the challenges. Indeed, without a peaceful environment, progress and development in the region will continue to remain elusive. In this regard, we must remain committed to the utilization of all regional frameworks at our disposal to address the menace of insecurity. The president, who further noted that there is also the regional plan of action on the fight against terrorism 2020 to 2024, says, I will ensure that we immediately harmonize these plans and mobilize resources as well as the political will towards the actualization of the initiatives. We must work collectively to have an effective regional counterterrorism measure. The president further asserts that we must stand firm on democracy. There is no governance, freedom and rule of law without democracy. We will not accept coup after coup in West Africa again. The new ECOWAS chair had started off in Guinea-Bissau by giving Nigerian troops a morale booster when he commended the military for the enhanced stability in the region.
we assure you of our commitment to peace and democracy across, not only in West Africa's sub-region, but around the world. And hearing that the allowances are paid up to date, we continue to build a virile force. We are very proud of you. And we will not abandon you at any given time. Nigeria depends on you. Nigeria will show the world that you are responsible and you are focused.
In the last 13 years, exports of Nigeria to Guinea-Bissau have increased at the rate of 23.3% annually, while the nominal GDP of the ECOWAS is pegged at $816 billion. Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
It does appear that the last is yet to be heard of the former head of state, General Sani Abacha's lute, as the Federal High Court Abuja orders the disclosure of spending details of $5 billion by successive governments from 1999 till date. The judgment, delivered by Justice James Kolawole Omotosho, follows a Freedom of Information suit brought by the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP. The court ordered the government of President Bola Tinubu to disclose the exact amount of stolen money or money stolen by General Sani Abacha from Nigeria and the total amount of the Abacha loot recovered, and all agreements signed on by the governments of former Presidents Olusegun Obasanjo, Umaru Yar'Adua, Goodluck Jonathan, and Muhammadu Buhari. According to SERAP, Justice Omotosho held that the application by SERAP is meritorious, and the federal government, through the Ministry of Finance, was ordered to furnish the rights group with the full spending details of about $5 billion Abacha loot within 7 days of the judgment. The judgment also demands that details of the projects executed with the Abacha loot, including locations of any such projects and other specifics from 1999 till date. On Thursday, 4 new executive orders were signed into law by the President, Bola Tinubu, to curb arbitrary taxation policies in Nigeria. These include the Finance Order, known as the Finance Act Order, which defers the implementation of charges in the Finance Act from May the 23rd, 2023 to September the 1st, 2023. The second executive order is the Customs Excise Tariff. This alteration provides businesses additional time to adapt to any modifications in customs and excise duties, enabling them to make informed decisions and mitigate potential disruptions. The President realizes the impact of excessive taxation by suspending 5% excise tax on telecommunication services and the excise on locally manufactured products. The President also ordered the removal of the newly introduced green tax on single-use plastic, and then the suspension of the import tax adjustment levy on vehicles, which initially came into effect on June the 1st this year. This decision aims at easing financial burden and importers of vehicles of a 2% charge. We'll definitely have our guest, the Director General of the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, Adewale Smartcall, to speak more on that. And of course, in part 2, after the break, our data analyst, Babajide Oguso, will be joining me to look at the effects of high cost of living and challenges faced by citizens to adjust. That's in a moment. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10, coming to you live on Channels Television. A reminder of our main stories. Tragedy in Lagos as 15 people are killed in an accident on Lagos-Badagry Expressway. Traffic officials say it's a head-on collision between a bus and a tipper truck under the rain. The President emerges as chairman while attending the ECOWAS Heads of State and Government session in Guinea-Bissau. Also meets Nigerian troops on foreign mission, expresses solidarity with them. Director General of the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, NECA, Mr. Adewale Smart Onyeride, gives his perspective on President Bola Tinubu's executive orders and their impact. And US President Joe Biden faces criticism over decision to send cluster bombs to Ukraine. Joining me now to explain the executive orders by President Bola Tinubu is the Director General of the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, NECA, Mr. Adewale Smart Onyeride. Thank you for joining us on the News at 10.
Thank you for having us. Good evening.
All right, so let's get into it. The first breakdown for us is the executive orders by President Bola Tinubu and how employers and business owners are reacting to it. I mean, how do you put that in perspective?
Well, thank you once again. For us, as the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, the voice of business in Nigeria, it was a good news, we must say. It was a news that gladdens our heart, coming from the twilight of the last administration, where a legacy, what we call a legacy of taxes, was bequeathed on organized businesses. So when these 4 executive orders came, it was a welcome development because, first, if you find yourself in a hole, the first thing you stop doing is to stop digging. Once you stop digging, then you find yourself back to the zero level, to the ground level before you now start on the trajectory of growth. And what the 4 executive orders, what they've done is to stop digging, to stop the organized businesses from digging further or from going into extinction. Because many of the components of the executive orders or the components that the executive orders try to resolve were issues that we've continuously advocated for. New taxes were introduced at the twilight of the last administration. The issue of custom and excise duty came up. The issue of tax on plastic came up. And we engaged constructively to show the damage that these taxes or these new introductions will do to organized businesses. So immediately we received the news of the executive order, where it didn't solve the whole issue, but it has brought us to a point where we stopped digging, or where we stopped digging the grave for organized businesses in Nigeria. As I said, there were issues that shouldn't have been. They didn't take cognizance of the issue of what to tax, how much to tax, and exactly when to tax. When organized businesses are already struggling, most are already doing the Jackpot syndrome, living in droves from Nigeria to other environments to go and transact business and turning the country to a sales point. We feel there is an urgent need for us to stop that slide. And the 4 executive orders, they did just that, to stop the slide. As I said, they didn't resolve the issues because some of those components of the orders basically extended the implementation date or postponed the implementation date of some of those critical components of the laws that we are canvassing that the government should stop. So for us, it gives us a breather to engage. It creates a platform where organized businesses can now constructively engage the administration to show them the definitive impact of those components of that law. But the executive orders has given us a breather, as I said, for constructive engagement. And it will, for now, stop the slide into extinction for many businesses within the organized private sector. And even the MSME and the SMEs that also play a major part within the context of GDP growth and job creation for this country.
All right, so finally, what more should the government do to ease the impact of subsidy removal on Nigerians? Because the people are definitely feeling the heat, as it were.
I think a lot more. First, we're happy that the president announced the appointment of Mr. Taiwo Oyedele as chairman of the Tax Reform Committee, which is good for the economy, is good for organized businesses, is good for the nation. We think government should also do quickly, to a holistic review of the tax system that the committee is meant to address. Currently, organized businesses pay over 60 different taxes, levies, and fees across the 3 tiers of government. And we feel it is high time we do the needful by harmonizing those taxes in the immediate. And we think government should also review the VAT on AGO, on diesel. Those are components that can also compromise the good intention of government through the issue of the executive orders. We also think government should focus quickly on what we call wage goods now. For everybody, all individuals, both household, both workers, we all spend money predominantly on 3 things: money on food, money on transportation, and also money on accommodation, housing. So if government can, in the short term, medium term, and long term, deal with these issues that is at the heart of the survival of the average Nigerians, I think we will have started on a good path of resolving the issues arising from the subsidy regime. And not to mention, lastly, the issue of the national minimum wage that is due for negotiation in 2024. I think the machinery to start the conversation about the national minimum wage should actually start now, so that by 2024 we are able to arrive at a realistic and justifiable minimum wage for Nigerian workers.
Mr. Adewale Smart Onyeride, the DG of the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, NECA. We thank you so much for your thoughts on the news at 10. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you.
As Nigerians continue to adjust to the effective removal of fuel subsidy, Yobe residents, especially low-income earners, are lamenting the impact of the policy, which they say is affecting the economy. In this special report, Channels Television's investigations reveal how fuel station workers, as well as commercial drivers in the state, are gradually losing their jobs due to low patronage.
This is Damaturu Central Motor Park in Yobe State. Vehicles are parked everywhere as the drivers wait anxiously for passengers. Some drivers lament that they had to wait for days before filling the vehicles because of low turnout of passengers at the motor park.
It has affected us. Sometimes you have to spend 3 days in a week before getting passengers, and everything is at a standstill.
We too, the motorists, also we experience the shortage of movement of people from one place to another. So it's hardly now. Before we can, at least per day, here we can get at least 20 or 30 vehicles move from this line from Damaturu to Maiduguri. But now it's hardly to get 5 or 10 vehicles.
Just as the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority disclosed that the average daily consumption of fuel in Nigeria has dropped by 28% since the removal of fuel subsidy, the filling station operators in Damaturu say their sales have also dropped drastically.
The sale has gone down drastically because people no longer come here to buy fuel as they used to patronize us before. Some people have dropped their motto. They say that the fuel is too cost unless government reduce the fuel. So that's the problem. Before we used to sell enough quantity of fuel, but now it's little every day.
As you can see, even the station, we have no customer right now because the fuel subsidy makes some other people to stop even riding their vehicle.
Although the product is sold between 557 to 600 naira here, residents explain how they have reduced unnecessary traveling and consumption of fuel.
As a result of the increase in the petrol prices, then definitely the movement has to reduce.
To come to town before, we do pay 100 naira. We do pay 100 naira, but now we do pay 200, 250, and then that make me not to even go to town.
With the removal of fuel subsidy, some Yobe residents are appealing to the federal and state governments to come up with palliatives that would cushion the effect of this policy on the lives of citizens.
Right, the theme that is running through this bulletin tonight has been indeed the high cost of living, fuel subsidy removal, and of course, President Bola Tinubu's executive orders. Now, some economists have described the recent executive orders of the president as some sort of cost of living allowance. Tonight, our focus is on how much impact will these executive orders have on the rising price of goods and services across the country. Babajide Ogunso, founder of Leadership by Data and Channels Television's data consultant, is here to share insights. Great to have you again on the News at 10, Babajide.
Anthony, good evening.
All right. So, I see you having a lollipop with you. I don't know, perhaps has anything to do with what we're going to be talking about tonight. Well, is there any research, of course, or evidence that points to how much impact these recent executive orders of the president will have on slowing down the rising price of goods across the country?
So I'd like to start from a slightly different perspective. You see, lollipop tastes sweet, but it is not filling. That is how I'll summarize these executive orders. Like lollipop, it tastes sweet, but is it filling? No, it isn't. You know, the executive orders are meant to achieve 3 things. First, improve the ease of doing business. Second, one will reduce the rising price of alcoholic beverages. And thirdly, one of the executive orders as well is meant to reduce the rising price of telecommunication bills paid by consumers. But here are the facts, Ayotunde.
I asked the National Bureau of Statistics, how much do Nigerians spend on alcohol? And they told me, Jide, on an average, for every 100 naira Nigerians spend, less than 1% goes on alcohol. Again, lollipop tastes sweet, but it's not filling. I then asked the National Bureau of Statistics, what about telecommunication services? How much do Nigerians spend on telecommunication services? The National Bureau of Statistics told me that on an average, for every 100 naira Nigerians spend, less than 5% goes to telecommunication services. Again, sweet, like lollipop, but these executive orders are not filling. And so the summary which I then asked was, where do Nigerians spend most of their money? Where will the impact of executive orders be felt? And the answer from the National Bureau of Statistics was that for every 100 naira Nigerians spend, 57% goes to food. In summary terms, more than half of every naira we spend goes to food. And so if we want executive orders to have the highest impact, we need to look at how do we significantly reduce the rising price of food. That is the fact. These executive orders of the president, like lollipop, ayo, sweet, but they don't fill you. And so what the president also needs to do is that we need to, similar to what we did to insecurity, declare a war on food insecurity. Because today, Nigeria is food insecure. And so what we've seen is rising price of food, and it has significantly reduced the quality of living for Nigerians. So if we want to improve the quality of living for Nigerians, apart from looking at these important issues, we need to keep our eyes on the urgent issues at hand.
So then, I want to ask you, how easy is it for the government to really increase its revenue without increasing the tax burden on citizens? Because you've already talked about rising cost of food.
So we've had people discuss these issues in different ways. Some will say that Nigerians don't pay tax if you look at the tax revenue versus GDP. But I tell people that Nigerians pay a lot of tax. Let's not just look at that tax revenue relative to GDP. Let's look at inflation tax. Inflation is a tax. And if we take a look at how much Nigerians have paid on inflation tax, we will see that there are reasons to be bothered. Look at what happened between 1999 to 2006. On an average, in 1999, inflation rate was 22%. 2000, it went down 15%, went up in 2001, 16%. We see that as of 2003, under President Obasanjo, annual inflation rate was 24%. And the summary is that even though Obasanjo's inflation rates started at 22%, it ended at 9%. Some good news, a high and low swing. Between 2007 and 2010, inflation started at 7%, went high 15% a year after, went low 14%, went lower again 14%. So we summarize inflation rates, that inflation tax under Yar'Adua as a high-low swing. Under President Goodluck Jonathan, it started at 10%, went high to 12%, went low to 8%, and stayed at 8% as at the end of 2014. So again, under President Jonathan, it was a high-low swing. What about President Buhari? 2015, 10%. But you keep an eye on what happened since 2018. 11%, a year after, 12%, a year after, 16%, 16%, and it ended 21%. In summary terms, inflation under President Buhari started at 10%, and as at when he left office, 21%, more than double. Now, why is all of this important, Ayotunde? The summary of what we've seen in front of us tonight shows that between 1999 and the end of last year, Nigeria's cumulative inflation rate, 300%. That is inflation tax. In only 23 years, Nigeria's inflation over 300%. Most developed economies, it takes them a century for their cumulative inflation rate to hit 300%. And that has happened in Nigeria in just about 24 years ago. And so, yes, tax to GDP in Nigeria might look relatively low, but inflation has taxed Nigerians heavily. In summary, you'll be better off earning a 10,000 naira minimum wage in 1999 than earning 30,000 naira today.
Interesting. So what else can the government actually do, to significantly reduce the speed at which the prices of goods and services, are skyrocketing?
So a lot of people have talked about this thing. A lot of researchers have said in the short term, wages have the highest impact on inflation rates. In the medium term, it's money supply, and in the long term, it's population. But one thing the government hasn't kept its eyes on, it's the population, long term. Again, don't forget how we started. Lollipop tastes sweet, but it's not filling. Let's take a look at how much impact Nigeria's population is having on the rising price of goods and services. Because with rising population, the demand for goods and services will increase. Now let's focus a bit on what's in front of us. As at independence, the UK had a population of 52 million. Nigeria had a population then less than the UK, 45 million. Now look at what has happened between 1960 to 2022 in the UK. The UK's population has grown by 15 million, and most of that growth was even from migrants. Researchers show that about a third of that 50 million growth of the United Kingdom was from migrants. Look at Nigeria. Population in 1960, 45 million, now 210 million. Since independence, 165 million, approximately 165 million new births. South Africa has had huge population growth, but not as Nigeria, 16 million to 60 million, 45 million growth. Why is this important? With such population growth, the demand for limited goods and services are skyrocketing. Limited resources, yet people are demanding for these resources. And that in the long term is the reason why prices keep rising. So what the government needs to do is to look at issues of how to give people incentives if they do not contribute to such huge population growth. Being able to implement child limitation policy might be near impossible in North or Southern Nigeria, especially in Northern Nigeria. However, we need to understand that population growth has been the most significant reason why long-term inflation in Nigeria is yet to come down. And I know you're about to rush. Just before you go, remember, I've got this for you as well.
Oh, I have a lollipop.
It might not be filling.
It might not be filling, but
it's sweet. And that is what the executive orders really do. So
I will keep hope alive.
That is your executive order.
Thank you so much, Babajide Oguso, for your analysis once again. Thank you so much.
Pleasure is all mine.
Former Governor of Ekiti State, Ayodele Fayose, believes that those who are between the ages of 65 and 70 should not aspire for ministerial positions under President Bola Tinubu. Instead, they should recommend young people for such offices. He was speaking this evening on our program, Sunday Politics, explaining that if he is offered a ministerial position, he will not accept it.
I will never take it.
You will never work for this government. Is that what you're saying?
Let me tell you something small. If I want to be honest with you again, some people may not like to hear this. Any of us that has reached the age of 70, almost 65 and above, I sure you should tell us to go and bring our children, our grown-up children, well-educated. Already their future has been stolen. The future of these young people are already stolen. They have rolled over their time with our time. Let me tell you very straightforward. If the future is for these young people, Ashiwaju, to my own view, and I share this with him, and I'm saying it again, it should be 40% for oldies like us, 30% for women, 30% for young people. It's the position of the president to take whichever way he goes. It's an advice. 40% for all cargoes. A majority have had a taste of government more than 3, 4, 5 times. Yes, they are still relevant to governance. They have a lot to offer. But young people in government must be 30% and women 30%.
All is well that ends well, as the immediate past Chief of Defence Staff, General Lucky Irabor, is welcomed home by his kinsmen in Ika South local government area of Delta State. General Irabor and his family members were given a rousing reception in an event attended by the Delta State Governor, his predecessor, traditional rulers and other prominent Nigerians. He promised to support the fight against terrorism, especially among the youth, in order to foster peace, stability and development in Nigeria.
Sometimes small sizes. Dressed in traditional attire, a rare sight in a long while, the immediate past Chief of Defence Staff, General Lucky Irabor, in company of his wife, is welcomed to the venue of a grand reception by the Ika Nation in his honor after serving the country for almost 40 years. It's a roll call of dignitaries here in Agbo, Ika South local government area, including the Delta State Governor, Sheriff Oboroweri, his deputy, his predecessor, Ifeanyi Okowa, serving and former military officers, traditional rulers, among others. General Irabor, who was a member regular course 34 in 1983 and served as the 17th Chief of Defence Staff from 2021 to 2023 under the Buhari administration, appreciates his kinsmen for the honor and promises to continue serving the country.
For me, I remain committed. Indeed, having served the nation for close to 40 years, 4 decades, what is left? So the rest of my life is committed to serving Nigeria. And that is a commitment that I'm making after consultation with my wife, that whatever it takes for us to have a beautiful country, whatever contribution that is required of me, that we will make. And to the Ika Nation, know that we remain your vanguard. We will protect you.
Governor Oboroweri believes his service is still needed.
With his experience, there's no way we can just leave him. But definitely, we encourage him to also be part of us and also be part of this nation, because retirement is not, he has retired, but the experience that he has gathered, this nation still needs him to serve in different capacity.
Besides honoring General Irabor, former Delta State Governor and a former CDS General Alexander Obumudia says Nigeria is work in progress that requires unity of purpose.
For every job we do, there's always room for improvement, that you know. So a new man has come now. He's going to look at issues on the ground, what the challenges have been, what areas we can make amendments here and there to achieve a total solution.
We believe in a united Nigeria. We believe that there is a need for us to have peace, because in peace we'll develop. I'm very confident that the choice of the current Chief of Defence Staff is one that would also bring great joy to Nigerians.
General Irabor was born on 5th October 1965 in Agbo Ika local government area of Delta State and was commissioned as second lieutenant in 1986, where he rose through the ranks to become Nigeria's 17th Chief of Army Staff.
Let's talk politics now. The Imo State governorship election is 4 months away and political activities in the state are in top gear as major gladiators are beginning to meet key stakeholders to unveil their plans for the people. According to INEC and in line with Section 94(1) of the Electoral Act 2022, political campaigns officially commenced on June the 14th, 2023 and officially ends on November the 9th this year. That is 24 hours prior to Election Day. 17 political parties and their candidates will be jostling for the governorship seat in one of the nation's off-cycle elections scheduled for November the 11th.
With Imo State governorship election now fixed for November 11, political parties and their candidates are already putting in the work to win the people over to their sides. In the APC fold, incumbent Governor Senator Hope Uzodinma has his party's ticket to run for a second term. Even amid the security challenges, the governor believes his achievements in the first tenure qualifies him for another term in office.
You will agree with me that from where we met Imo State in 2020 and where Imo State is today, 2023, there is a huge difference. And if that is what touched your heart, to challenge me to continue, what you have just told me is do more work.
For the People's Democratic Party, Senator Samuel Ayawu, the current National Secretary of the PDP, is the party's flag bearer. The candidate believes his wealth of experience as a former lawmaker and the scribe of the party puts him ahead in solving the economic, security and other challenges facing the state.
My journey of life and political experience over the years as the government chairman, member of the State Assembly, Senator of the Federal Government of Nigeria, and National Secretary of my party, the PDP, have prepared me for this task.
Senator Arthur Nachonu, who represented the Imo North Senatorial District between 2015 and 2019 in the red chambers, clinched the Labour Party governorship ticket after a keenly contested primaries. He picks former federal lawmaker who represented Oshodi Solo 2, Tony Nwolu, as his running mate.
I have always believed that once you have elected councillors, chairmen, you cannot have crime anywhere, because every councillor will know all the people who live in his ward.
Retired Major General Jack Ogunewe, having lost to Arthur Nachonu during the Labour Party's governorship primaries, emerged the candidate of Action Alliance.
My philosophy is that leadership is a body. And if it's a body to you, the problems of the masses will be a priority.
Professor James Okoroma is the governorship candidate of the African Democratic Congress, ADC. A former special assistant to late Senate President Chuba Kadibo, he plans to scale up investment in education.
I know what to do about unemployment. I will bring an educational blueprint that will ensure that the drivers of the economy and the drivers of the education system achieve a convergence.
As political activities intensify in Imo, the people of the state say they look forward to a free, fair, credible and violence-free election that will bring about development and good governance in the state.
Still talking politics, the candidate of the Social Democratic Party in the forthcoming governorship election in Kogi State, Murtala Ajaka, says no amount of political intimidation can hinder him from winning the governorship election, as he expresses confidence that the people are with him. Mr. Ajaka stated this in Ida, the ancestral home of the Igala Kingdom, while speaking to journalists.
As early as 8 a.m., the surroundings of the Palace of the Atta of Igala is filled with party members and supporters of the Social Democratic Party, SDP, as they converge to receive the party's candidate, who's visiting the Atta of Igala to declare his intention to run for the governorship election and get a royal blessing just like every other candidate has done before him. Unfortunately, his visit to His Royal Majesty is stopped, as the palace protocol says there's no official document written by the party to the palace in respect of the visit. But the SDP candidate, in an interview, alleges that the State Ministry of Local Government and Chieftaincy Affairs had earlier issued a circular to the royal fathers in the state directing them not to receive him. Undeterred, he goes on to express confidence that he is the candidate to beat in the forthcoming election.
If you leave it to the people in Lokoja, the authority in Lokoja, of course there will be no level playing field. As you are aware, this morning a circular has been issued to the Atta of Igala, the Ohinoyo of Igboraland, and the Aro of Kaba, that they should not receive me. From the Ministry of Local Government and Chieftaincy Affairs.
So why do you think the ministry will do that?
Because they are jittery. Because I have infectious followership. When I meet them, I know the people follow me.
While soliciting the support of Kogi people and their votes to enable him achieve his dreams for the state, he charges supporters across the 21 local government areas of the state to go about their campaign within the ambit of the law, assuring that his victory is certain.
When you follow the law is about peace. That's why we are peaceful people, we are law-abiding. And the law guarantees us freedom of speech, the freedom to move around, the freedom to campaign for and to be campaigned for too. So by the grace of God, I urge my people, they should remain resilient, they should not be afraid. What we are seeing is a pure case of political intimidation. But from what I've seen from our people so far, they are not intimidated.
As political parties commence campaigns in Kogi State, stakeholders in the state are asking the security agencies to provide a level playing ground for all.
To education, where the Taraba State Governor Agbu Kefes has declared free primary and secondary education in the state beginning from the next academic session. The governor made the declaration in Wukari local government area when he paid an impromptu visit to some government-owned primary and secondary schools.
Days after slashing the state varsity fees by 50%, Governor Agbu Kefes has stormed Wukari town, the headquarters of Wukari local government area, to pay an impromptu visit to some of the state-owned primary and secondary schools. He walks into the classroom and sits with the pupils, checking their notes.
You are failing the future generation. You are failing your children, your great-grandchildren.
He also interacts with them to their delight. The students and teachers say the infrastructure deficit in their school is worrisome, but are optimistic that the present administration will turn around the situation.
We want to see that there are changes in our classes, in our environments, and even our laboratory.
As you can see, the school is dilapidating. And I thank God that he's going around to see all that needs to be done. In fact, this school really needs this visit. And we thank God he is going around to see it himself, not just by being told or picture, snap and send to him, which he will not really know the nature of things. But by him coming in person, going around the schools, he will see that this place needs his attention more than any other places.
The governor is not happy with the poor learning environment. He promises an upgrade and straight away declares that basic and secondary education in the state will be made free from the next academic session.
By the grace of God, we will return the school back to boarding school. Secondary school, primary school, free of charge. Next time, no school fees. We'll make sure we provide all the necessary things you need so that you can concentrate on your studies.
As the governor moves to fulfill his campaign promises in the education sector, residents of Taraba State will be looking to see other sectors of the state's economy receive the necessary attention.
The people of Oba community in the Demili South local government area of Anambra State are demanding for government intervention to stem the effects of erosion in their community, particularly on their roads. The indigents believe that the menace poses a threat to their lives and businesses and are asking for a speedy solution to the problem.
The Oba axis of the Onishoweri Road in Anambra State is under threat owing to the erosion plaguing the area. A massive gully has eaten deep into the soil and is extending to the second lane of the highway, further worsened by the movement of heavy-duty vehicles plying the route. The tartan track section of the community stadium is also affected by the erosion.
You can see it's not something a community or even state can. And my factory may collapse if nothing is done.
Indigents of the community relay their concerns to the senator representing the area. Senator Victor Omer, who seconded last week's motion on southeast erosion threats on the floor of the Senate, is here to inspect the level of devastation.
The east-west road that connects the south-south from Lagos has become a nightmare in this country. Vehicular movement has been very difficult in the coastline states through the east-west road. So everybody has a recourse to this very road. This is the only road everybody uses. So I'm going to take this to the Senate President, His Excellency Senator Dr. Godfrey Akpabio, for him to see by himself. And we'll see how the National Assembly
will intervene at least on this section. This is the most urgent one in this zone now.
The people of Oba in Anambra State hope there will be swift response to their cry for help.
Outside our shores, there are reports that the government of Seychelles has banned Nigerian passport holders from visiting the country for holiday and tourism. The information was reportedly corroborated by the country's border security, which confirmed the decision, but could give no further information. One travel content creator raised an alarm on Saturday evening after receiving a rejection email which he shared on Twitter. It read, "We regret to inform you that your application has been declined, as per immigration regulation. For now, we are not accepting any Nigerian passport holder for holiday purposes." News of the ban, which has drawn reactions from Nigerians in social media spaces, comes 7 months after Nigeria and the Seychelles signed a pact for direct flights with the countries. Both countries already had a long-standing visa-free agreement with Seychelles, which allows Nigerian citizens free entry without visa for 30 days. Messages sent to the Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Adamu Lamuwa, have yet to receive a response. US President Joe Biden has been criticized over his decision to send cluster bombs to Ukraine. Among the critics are the UK and Canada, who are concerned that supplying the bombs pose grave danger to civilians. President Biden is on his way to Europe to attend the NATO summit. He's expected first in the UK, where he's scheduled to meet with the British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak to discuss various issues, including the war in Ukraine, and to meet with King Charles III before heading to Lithuania for the NATO summit. NATO members will meet in Vilnius on Tuesday and Wednesday. Welcome to Sports News. Nigeria's D Tigers have kick-started their campaign on a solid note at the FIBA African Championship holding in Luanda, Angola. The senior men's national team defeated Mali 62-56 in their opening Group B fixture earlier this evening. Nigeria's Chinedu Chimbuo was the top performer for the D Tigers, ending the encounter with 15 points, 8 rebounds and 2 assists. Nigeria returns to the court on Monday when they face host Angola in their second group match. In football, Nigeria Premier Football League newly promoted side Sporting Lagos forced NPFL champions Eyimba International to a goalless draw in their Nigeria Super 8 Group A clash at the Mobolaji Johnson Arena, Onikon, in Lagos this evening. The Aba Giants have now failed to record a win in 2 games in the competition. George Finidi's side must beat Katsina United to have any chance of progressing into the semi-final stage. Earlier, Remo Stars were held to a 1-1 draw by Katsina United in another Group A game. Remo leads Group A with 4 points from 2 games. Katsina United and Sporting Lagos, who have played 1 game, have 1 point each. And the main news again. It was a sad day for Lagos as 15 passengers traveling on the Lagos-Badagry axis died following a tragic accident involving a bus and a tipper truck. The FRSC Deputy Commander in Lagos says it was due to reckless driving and it happened under the heavy downpour in the morning. Also today, President Bola Tinubu has emerged chairman at the ECOWAS Heads of State and Government session holding in Guinea-Bissau. The president also met with Nigerian troops on foreign mission and expressed solidarity with them. And US President Joe Biden has been criticized over his administration's decision to send cluster bombs to Ukraine, even as the war with Russia continues. That's the news at 10 tonight. Many thanks for watching. I'm Ayo Tunde Balogun. From all of us here, to have a good night.